missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you guys who are new, I go by Locks by Lauryn on Instagram, and here is my beautiful client that I've been doing her hair, and we always kind of do like a bleach and tone, but as you can see, her roots are extremely long, and if you can look closely, that line of demarcation is so soft. And what I mean by that is that it's not a hard line. So this is going to be a very difficult retouch because her hair, the line of demarcation, since it's not a really straight line, it's gonna be like a jagged line. So imagining touching up a really soft jagged line onto basically level 3 that's meeting pretty much a level 10 on the mids and ends. So I've definitely done her roots before and have had no problem, but today her roots are a little bit longer than what we had touched up last time, and ideally a client like this should be really coming in every like 4 to 6 weeks to do a root retouch. But you can see the last time we did her roots, there's some slight banding because she waited so long. So before I get into the color, I am going to give her a nice trim because her hair grows insanely fast, and I just give her a nice like textured bob. I don't put layers in my bobs because I feel like adding layers to a bob can make it look a little mullety. So I like to add texture, which is not technically a layer. I just kind of texturize the hair, and I will show you guys later how I like to texturize my bobs so that they don't look so blunt and heavy and flat. It gives them some nice movement, and it gives the illusion that there are layers, but it's really just texture. So whenever I cut her bob, I like to make the front a little bit longer. So I'll have her turn her head so that I can see where it's laying, and I just kind of see where it's laying at its natural fall and just start to trim the ends there, leaving and preserving that front corner so it's a little bit like a slight A-line. And then I have her tilt the head towards her back like that so that I could see if there's any hairs coming through the bottom. Just to make sure that everything is nice and clean wherever she moves her head. So I personally like to cut my client's hair before I do the color. I feel like it just saves time in a way and saves me product, especially if I'm going to be taking out weight. Because after I did this haircut, even though we basically just did like a trim on the end, I took out a lot of weight, and that would have wasted a lot of color. So I always do like to do my haircuts before we do the color on my client's hair. So here's how I normally will take out weight. I will section out pretty much that top layer basically, and I'll just start point cutting into it. And sometimes when I point cut, I will angle my point cutting a little angled so it's not perfectly like parallel to the hair, so it kind of takes out a little bit more weight. And then on the very bottom, I will for sure make sure that I'm pretty parallel to the hair so that it doesn't take out a big chunk like it would on that top layer. So for my lightener, I'm going to be using some Blonde Me Schwarzkopf and just mixing that with some 20 volume. I'm just going to use this formula pretty much throughout her whole head. And full disclaimer before we get into the way that I applied this color, there were some things that I totally would have done differently, and I feel like as a colorist, especially when you're doing a color correction, and it doesn't come out totally perfect, you're always thinking, oh my god, what could I have done better? What could I have used? And just trying to think like what you could have basically done to make it perfect. And the reality of it is whenever you're doing a color correction, those things are really hard, and it's never going to be 100% perfect, but it could be good enough. Thankfully, this client of mine, I had asked her to just be a model, and doing this, I was trying to do slight different technique as applying and tackling her roots. I have done her roots before, but they were never this long and her ends were never as white as they were with this amount of root. So it was definitely tricky for me, and she does have very stubborn Asian hair. And so basically today I'm just going to share with you guys some things that I would have done differently next time when I do it, and why I did the things that I do. And today I just want to be as like real with you guys as possible and just like honest, because you know sometimes like you do hair and you work on something and something isn't what you totally wanted and expected out of it, and that's okay. And I feel like owning up to it and just like learning from your mistakes is like the biggest thing. So I really contemplated about making this video because I wasn't super happy with the bands that came out with this lightning service, but everything is a learning process. And even with her hair, I think the number one thing whenever I do any client's hair is to try and maintain the integrity of their hair. I think that is like the number one thing, is like keeping their hair as healthy as possible. And when I was tackling this color correction, that was my main concern because she is so blonde and her natural is so dark. So my main concern was to not have any breakage. And so that is why I did the way I applied this color, and it didn't come out exactly the way I wanted, but you know, that's okay. And there are some things that I probably would have done differently next time, doing her roots if someone came in with this amount of long root with her same texture and all of that. So the way that I applied her color was I started in the back and I started on the top section, and I took very thin slices like I am now on the front, and pretty much painted that mid and tried to paint down into the line of demarcation, into the blonde. And I was trying super careful not to like overlap to any previous blonde while still painting all of the dark. And like I said before, her grout was super soft, so everything kind of was like in uneven lines. So it was really difficult for me, even taking really thin slices like this, to retouch that up and hit the line of demarcation perfectly. So in the result of that, there was some banding, and here I go back in and you can see after I have applied that midsection away from the root, I'm going in and hitting the root once again and leaving that foil there to help with the processing time. I think what I would have done differently next time is put like some sort of conditioner or treatment on the blonde area, because as I'm touching up that midsection before doing this root part, I was really not saturating fully where the line of demarcation was, because I was really scared that this lightener would expand into the blonde and then cause some breakage. So I think the other thing would be to use a different lightener, because knowing that this lightener kind of expands, I probably should have used a lightener that didn't, and then use some sort of conditioner to create a barrier on the blonde. And I've definitely done that before on a client, but it just didn't cross my mind because I've touched up her roots last time where it was long, and I did it similarly the way that I'm doing it now. But for some reason, I think because her roots were even longer this time, there was a lot more banding because of that heat zone, and the line of demarcation was even softer than it was before when I retouched it the last time. So this is what my client's hair looked like when I was just about ready to rinse. You can see the line of demarcation still has a slight warm band, and when I fully rinsed this out, her root was about a level 9, but that band was pretty much a level 8. So letting the root kind of lift to a level 9, it gives me some cushion room to lighten up that band, because if I were to lighten her root all the way to a level 10 and there was like a level 8-9 band there, it would be really difficult for me to go back in and retouch up the band without worrying about the root getting too light. So for today's semis, I mixed up a nice collection of rainbow tones. We did more of a vibrant color because, again, that band is pretty much a level 8, I would say, and I needed something bright enough to cover it and also help tone it, so when this fades out, it's not as warm. And I chose to do a very chunky rainbow placement because I feel like the underlights and chunky highlights are really making a comeback and have been super popular, so I felt like this was very fitting with what's on trend right now. And so I started off with the purple formulation around her face, and I typically, whenever I do rainbow tones, I like to either do a pink or a purple around the face because that's what they see around their face, and I need that to pretty much fade the prettiest around their face so that they can enjoy their color a little bit longer. So I went ahead and I made the rainbow chunk of purple in the front thicker and the rainbow chunk of blue in the back the biggest, and then all of the other colors in the middle I made them like a very skinny sliver because I just wanted like pretty much a little pop of that rainbow contrast in the middle, with the focus of being the blue and purple in the front and the back. And then once I was done applying her rainbow placement, I let this process for about 25 minutes in room temperature before I rinsed it with some ice cold water. Alrighty guys, so here is my finished rainbow creation. I was actually very happy with the way that this turned out despite the banding, but I mean, whenever you're doing a color correction, I always try to set up real expectations for what might happen, and if with this particular color, I did express to my client that waiting this long to do a solid bleach and tone retouch can create some banding, especially with the level that she naturally is and what level her ends were, and she totally understood, and I think that's probably the most important thing, is to explain that to your clients in the consultation. But yeah, I had really fun doing the rainbow colors on her hair. I haven't done a really pretty vibrant rainbow like this in a while, and I really missed it. And so I hope you guys enjoy this and learn from my mistake and maybe take something away and help you with your next color correction, because I feel like as a hairstylist, we are constantly learning and evolving. I feel like you could never know everything about every type of hair, and that is pretty much the beauty of our craft, is that we are always learning different techniques from other artists or from clients and their hair. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in to this week's episode, and I will talk to you guys next week.